12 years ago, I walked out of a mansion in the rain with nothing but my dignity. Tonight, those same people who threw me out are standing at my door, broken and desperate, begging me to let them back into the home that now belongs to me. My name is Claire Montgomery, and this is the story of how the girl they called Trash became the woman who owns everything they lost. It started in a small flower shop in downtown Seattle. I was 23, working double shifts 6 days a week to pay for night classes in accounting. My hands always smelled like roses and soil. My back ached from lifting buckets of water and arranging bouquets for weddings I'd never be invited to. But I had a plan. I was building something slowly, one credit at a time. That's where I met him, Ethan Harrington. He walked in on a Tuesday afternoon looking for flowers for his mother's birthday. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my rent. His watch caught the light. He smiled at me like I was the only person in the room. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing and everything. He came back the next day, and the day after that. Within a month, we were inseparable. He took me to waterfront restaurants where I felt out of place. He told me I was brilliant, that my mind was sharper than anyone he'd studied with at Yale. He said he loved the way I saw the world, that I wasn't jaded like the people in his circle. He kissed me under the Space Needle and whispered that he wanted to build a life with me. I believed every word. I didn't know then that love between unequal worlds doesn't survive first contact with reality. The reality came on Christmas Eve. Ethan had been dodging his family's invitations for weeks, but his mother finally issued an ultimatum: come to Christmas dinner or be written out of the will. He laughed it off when he told me, said his mother was dramatic, that she'd come around once she met me. I spent every dollar I'd saved on a simple black dress from Nordstrom Rack. I practiced small talk in the mirror. I told myself that if I was polite, gracious, and genuine, they'd see what Ethan saw. The Harrington estate sat on 5 acres in Medina, overlooking Lake Washington. The driveway alone was longer than my street. A housekeeper in uniform opened the door. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors in gilded frames. Everything whispered old money and older bloodlines. Ethan squeezed my hand as we walked toward the dining room. "You've got this," he said. His mother, Victoria Harrington, stood at the head of a table set with china so delicate it looked like it might shatter if you breathed on it. She was tall, thin, draped in pearls and cold certainty. Her eyes traveled from my shoes to my face, cataloguing every flaw. "So you're the florist," she said. Not a question, an indictment. "Yes, ma'am. I also study accounting at—" "How quaint." She turned to Ethan. "Sit. We're about to begin." Ethan's sister, Natalie, sat across from me. She had that particular brand of cruelty that comes from never being told no. She picked at her salad and asked, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, where I'd gone to prep school. "I went to public school in Tacoma," I said. Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Natalie laughed. "Public school, Ethan? You didn't mention your girlfriend was so down to earth." "Natalie, stop," Ethan said, but his voice carried no weight. Victoria set down her fork with precision. The sound echoed. "Let's not pretend, shall we? My son has had his fun, but this has gone on long enough. Ethan is engaged to Catherine Pembroke. Their families have been aligned for 3 generations. The wedding is planned for June." My stomach turned to ice. I looked at Ethan. "What is she talking about?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Claire, it's complicated." "Complicated?" My voice cracked. "You told me you loved me. You said—" "He said what you wanted to hear," Victoria interrupted. "Young men make mistakes. We're prepared to correct this one." She stood, walked to a side table, and returned with a checkbook. She wrote something, tore out the check, and placed it in front of me. The number had 5 zeros. "This is more money than you'll see in 10 years of selling flowers," she said. "Take it. Disappear. Stop embarrassing yourself and my family." I stared at that check. $50,000. A fortune to me then, an insult wrapped in paper. I looked at Ethan one last time. Say something. Defend me. Tell her she's wrong. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his mother, then at me. Claire, you have to understand. The foundation, the business. I can't just throw away my future. Your future. I stood. My chair scraped against the floor. I'm not your future. I'm just a mistake you made while slumming in the real world. I picked up the check, held it up, tore it in half, then in half again. I let the pieces fall onto the porcelain plate in front of me, onto the gold-rimmed china that probably cost more than my car. You can keep your money, I said. My voice was steady now, cold. I don't need your charity. I don't need anything from people who measure a person's worth by their last name. I looked at Ethan one final time. You're a coward, and one day you'll realize that being rich doesn't make you powerful. It just makes you comfortable while you rot from the inside. I walked out. No one stopped me. I walked down that long driveway in my Nordstrom rack dress, in the rain, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. I walked for miles, soaked, shaking, broken. But somewhere between that mansion and my tiny apartment in Capitol Hill, something else happened. The crying stopped. The shaking turned into something harder, colder. I made myself a promise that night. No one would ever make me feel small again. I would build something so big, so unshakable, that people like Victoria Harrington would have to look up to see me. I didn't know then that it would take 12 years. I didn't know the cost, but I knew I'd pay it. I worked like a machine. I finished my degree in 2 years while working full-time at the flower shop until my hands cracked and bled. I took a job at a small investment firm for $38,000 a year. They put me in a cubicle with no window. I didn't care. I studied market patterns until my eyes burned, memorizing every fluctuation, every correlation, every signal that separated luck from strategy. I learned to read balance sheets the way some people read novels, staying 3 hours past closing to model scenarios no one asked me to run. My boss noticed. 6 months later, I moved to a bigger firm with actual responsibility and double the salary. I made my first real investment with $3,000 I'd scraped together over 18 months, buying a foreclosed duplex in Renton that everyone said was a lost cause. The inspection report listed 14 major violations. I spent my weekends fixing drywall, replacing fixtures, painting rooms until my shoulders screamed. I rented it for $1,200 a month. 8 months later, I bought another foreclosed property in White Center, then another in Burien. I learned to spot potential in what others called garbage. I stopped sleeping more than 5 hours a night. I stopped dating. I stopped everything that wasn't building. By year 5, I owned a small portfolio of rental properties. By year 8, I'd moved into commercial real estate. By year 10, I'd founded Montgomery Capital, a private equity firm specializing in distressed assets. I bought failing businesses, stripped them down, rebuilt them, and sold them for profit. I was ruthless, fair but ruthless. People started calling me the Ice Queen of Seattle finance. I didn't mind. Ice doesn't burn. Ice doesn't break. While I was rising, the Harringtons were falling. I didn't cause it. I didn't have to. I just watched. Ethan took over Harrington Industries after his father died of a stroke in year 3. The company had survived 4 generations on timber and shipping contracts, boring and profitable. Ethan wanted flash. He wanted innovation. He sank $18 million into a virtual reality startup that folded before launching a product. He bought into a cryptocurrency mining operation that turned out to be half Ponzi scheme. He borrowed against the company to cover losses, convinced the next deal would fix everything. Then he borrowed against the properties. The vacation home in Aspen went as collateral for a bridge loan he never paid back. He mortgaged the downtown commercial building to fund a blockchain logistics platform that never shipped a single package. I watched the filings. I tracked every loan, every lien, every desperate refinance. He was bleeding out in slow motion, and he couldn't stop because stopping meant admitting he'd destroyed everything his family built. Natalie drained what was left on luxury trips, and a failed attempt to launch a fashion line that folded in 6 months. Victoria kept spending like the money would never run out. It did. The first asset to go was the commercial building downtown, then the vacation home in Aspen, then the cars. I watched it happen from a distance, the way you watch a structure collapse in slow motion. Then I heard through my network that the estate, the Medina mansion, was about to be seized by creditors. The debt was massive. No traditional buyer would touch it. I made a call. I bought the debt through a shell company. Then I bought the estate itself at a private auction. I paid cash, 60% of its original value. I moved in 3 weeks later. The first time I walked through those doors as the owner, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just a quiet sense of completion, like finishing a long equation and checking your work. I kept most of the furniture. I liked the irony. 2 months after I moved in, the doorbell rang. I was in the library, the same room where Victoria had written that check. My assistant told me 2 people were here asking to see the owner. No appointment. "Who are they?" I asked. She hesitated. "Victoria and Ethan Harrington." I felt nothing. Not anger, not vindication, just a mild curiosity, like seeing an old photograph and trying to remember when it was taken. "Send them in," I said. They looked smaller than I remembered. Victoria's pearls were gone. She wore a department store blazer, charcoal grey with a loose button, the kind you find on a clearance rack. Her hair, once maintained weekly at Jean Juarez, was showing grey roots. The imperious posture had collapsed into something hunched, guarded. Ethan had gained 40 pounds, maybe more. His suit was the same navy one he'd worn to buy flowers 12 years ago, only now it pulled tight across his middle, and the cuffs were frayed. His hair was thinning at the crown. His eyes were red-rimmed and exhausted, the eyes of someone who hasn't slept properly in months. His hands shook slightly. I noticed that. The tremor of someone whose nervous system has been running on adrenaline and fear for too long. They stood in the doorway of the library, staring at me. I was wearing a Chanel suit. My hair was pulled back. The diamonds around my neck cost more than their remaining net worth. "Hello, Victoria," I said. "Hello, Ethan." Victoria's hand went to her chest. Ethan's face went white. "Claire." His voice was barely a whisper. You're the one who bought everything," I finished. "I own your debt. I own this house. I own the remaining shares of your company. Technically, I own most of what's left of your lives." Victoria's composure cracked. "You did this on purpose. You orchestrated our ruin." I laughed. It was genuine. "I didn't have to. You destroyed yourselves. I just bought the wreckage at a discount." Ethan stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Claire, please. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. But we're desperate. We have nowhere to go. We're about to be evicted from the apartment we've been renting. My mother, We need help. You need help." I leaned back in the chair, Victoria's chair. "The way I needed help 12 years ago when you let your mother call me trash. When you chose money over me. When you sat there in silence while she tried to buy me off like I was a problem to be solved. I was young. I was stupid. I'm sorry." "You're not sorry you did it," I said. "You're sorry it didn't work out for you." Victoria's voice was sharp, desperate. "What do you want? To humiliate us? To watch us suffer? You've won, Claire. You've proven your point." "I didn't prove anything," I said. "You did. You proved that cruelty is expensive, that arrogance has a bill, that the world you thought was fixed and permanent was actually just one bad decision away from collapse." I opened a drawer, pulled out my own checkbook, wrote a number, tore it out, slid it across the desk toward them. Ethan picked it up. His hands trembled. $500. It's enough for a deposit on a studio apartment in Kent, I said. Maybe Renton if you're lucky. I hear there are openings for night shift work at the Amazon warehouse. You're both still young enough to work. Victoria's face twisted. You're really going to do this? After everything, you're going to throw us into the street? No, I said. I'm going to let you walk out of here the same way I did. With your dignity, if you can find it. That's more than you gave me. I pressed the intercom. Security, please escort Ms. Harrington and Mr. Harrington out through the service entrance. Make sure they take the check. Claire, Ethan said, his voice breaking. Please, I loved you. I really did. No, you didn't, I said. You loved the idea of rebellion. You loved feeling charitable. You loved how it made you feel to lift someone up, but you didn't love me enough to stand up for me when it mattered. That's not love, Ethan. That's tourism. Security came. Ethan was crying. Victoria was silent, her face a mask of shattered pride. They walked out the way I once did, only this time the roles were reversed. I watched them go. I waited until I heard the door close. Then I stood and walked to the window. The view overlooked the lake, the city lights reflecting off the water. I pressed my hand against the glass. It was cool, solid. I thought about the girl in the flower shop, the one who believed that love was enough, the one who thought kindness would be rewarded. She was gone. Maybe that was the real cost. Not the 12 years, not the sleepless nights, but the loss of the version of me who believed the world was fair. I don't regret it. I can't afford to, because the world isn't fair. It's just expensive. And I paid the price to never be powerless again. I hope this story stays with you. I'll see you in the next one.